Welcome to the 100th episode of the Big Property Podcast. This is super special for a number of reasons. Well, firstly, it's the final episode. And secondly, this is with my business partner, Aidas, Grubliauskas, who you would not have met before, and he was sharing insights that we don't normally share. And I'll share why this is the final episode more in the podcast, so let's jump straight into it. Aidas, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me here.
My pleasure.
This is a very special episode for three key reasons. Firstly, it's our 100th episode, which is pretty amazing. We're not even sure how long this is going to run for when we start. So we've got to a 100th episode of the Big Property Podcast. Secondly, many may not know, they may have seen you around time to time. You're my business partner, many of the projects that we do. So this will be an insight into things that we probably haven't shared before. And in fact, it's your first ever podcast.
First ever podcast, yeah.
And the third, I guess, reason why this is so special, because it's the end.
Yeah.
It's the final episode. And I'll explain more about what that means at the end. So let's get into, tell us a little bit more about what is it you do?
Yeah. Well, we've started working together 9 years ago. So it's time's flying. It really is. It is really flying.
And you had hair then as well.
I had hair then. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I can't always just blame property for losing the hair. I have to probably blame my dad a little bit for the genetics on it as well. Well, if we go kind of back to when we started, the whole focus was HMOs. And look, we still do HMOs.
Yeah.
Maybe not as much as we used to, but still a lot. So our key focus has always been HMOs. So developing them, so finding the right deals, appraising them, negotiating on them, finding and securing them, effectively going through the full first stage of the procurement, the purchase side of things. And then preparing all the plans, preparing all the schedule of finishes. So we deal with now we've got a lady, Milda, who works with us, our architect designer. So together with her, we get all the schemes prepared. Then we'll tender out the contract. So whether it be external contractors or our in-house team, as we've grown over the last couple of years, and effectively overseeing those projects from start to finish. So I think that's one thing as far as HMOs go. Now, over the years, we have evolved a little bit. So we have then launched our short-term let business. So we've got 4 companies together, 50-50 on the lot. And then, it's been a great business journey so far. And short-term lets business, we've grown that, again, from day one in 2019. It was in February. In fact, I think we had our first guests arrive in one of our studios, didn't we? So the year that we've launched that business, it's been quite intense getting it off the ground. So I had to spend a lot of time systemizing it, finding the right processes in place.
We spent a lot of time before launching that business planning on how we're going to systemize and scale it.
Yeah, it was really 2018. And to be fair, we were a bit skeptical about it at first, I think. We were like, who's going to come to Birmingham, right?
People do. It's a great city.
It is a great city. But in fact, so it was a bit of a planning beforehand. I'd say about 6 to 7 months of really researching, looking at the numbers, looking at the properties, because we were repurposing our portfolio to see what properties would suit well to test the market out.
Yes.
And the model as far as short-term let service accommodation goes. And once we have launched it, then effectively was really just getting that business up and running and growing that, getting all the suppliers sorted out, from our linen contracts to our in-house maintenance, to the cleaners, to the software. And we have really spent a lot of time on the software and automation. I think that's been the key thing that helped us really grow that business. And we have effectively doubled that every year. We've done £100,000 in revenue within the first year fairly quickly. Our top year to date was, I think, about 1.2 million we've done in that company. And since then, we've grown that business. So then we've employed more people. Obviously, I've stepped out of the day-to-day operation out of it. I think the first year was critical for us to really understand the whole business and the concept and to
the learnings of operating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the key objective was to outsource as much as we could, leverage the systems and the software. And I feel we have really invested all on the software side of things, so that now, probably takes about 80% of the operations. The software is automated. And the few guys we got in the business that do the rest. So that was the short-term let business. And again, I think for me was the key thing is like we've started with one thing. So for me it was HMOs, right? Same as for yourself when you kind of really got into property properly. And that's been growing on the side, and it's kind of like we've fine-tuned it as much as we could, like from in Birmingham, we're breaking the ceilings for the rental prices, right?
Highest prices probably,
right. Both from what we provide from the tech side of things in the HMOs, how we make them very smart, appealing, boutique hotel style, and just the functional environment that we bring and give our tenants, right?
Yeah.
So there's not much more we can really do with the HMOs apart from, again, spending a lot more money on them, but then that won't justify the rental income, nor will be able to force up the end values more than we have at this point.
So in terms of that's the design and the functionality, there's probably not much more we can do. We probably maximize them. And now it's more of a kind of, generally it's a cookie cutter. Repeating the same thing pretty much with little tweaks.
Yeah. So that business, again, we've kind of, got to the point where it's growing. Obviously, we still have to be involved in it, but it's growing there, right?
Yeah. And we selectively take on property rather than just churn them out.
Yeah. And then the same thing was with the short-term led business. And, if we added 10 properties or 20 properties or 2 properties, it's a very easy plug-in now, right? So that's kind of growing as a business on its own. And then we've launched a big property group a few years after that, which effectively became our development main brand, shall we say, which you've been leading a lot of the face for now. I mean, I've got 2 young girls and I haven't got a luxury of as much time as maybe you have these days. But that business has been great as well. So we've got that more to do with our acquisitions. We've got a block of apartments that we're building in the minute. So again, my kind of role within that is to oversee those projects and make sure everything's ticking online. And we do have a lot of challenges. Like it's not straightforward. Every day we'll have an issue here or there, right? It's and people say property is a passive business. It's not a passive business.
That's the construction development side of the business. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the rental side, I think it's easier now because we've got another team.
Once it's operational, you hand it over.
Exactly. So we don't get involved in day-to-day stuff. So it's nice to see the rental income coming through, and we have a separate team that looks after that. And then really, I mean, obviously now we've got the educational side of things as well. So I think from that side, I really enjoy working with our students as far as we go on to the nitty-gritty stuff on the HMOs. I love the layout, the functionality, maximizing the space, really forcing up the values, both by the construction element, but also the paper exercise and effectively the more planning side of things. So in the educational business, I tend to focus with the students on the HMOs. And because we have done, millions of pounds in revenue in the short-term led business, it's fair to say we've gone through pretty much every single challenge we could go in the short-term led business. So I do take quite a bit of time and enjoyment guiding our students not to have the same issues.
Navigating the choppy shores.
In short, I wear a few hats, right? And I'm quite involved. I'm passionate about the business we have. I really enjoy what we do. I often joke that property is the easiest hard work I have ever done.
Yes, as I like that phrase,
because it's not easy, but it's easier than probably some of the other stuff I've done in the past.
Yeah.
And once you learn it and you do it, it's the cookie cutter approach, right? You kind of repeat it and rinse it, and you with time you get the momentum and the scale, and it becomes some sort of a passive income, right? Especially from the HMOs. That's the beauty of them. They're built, they're refinanced, cash is out, cash is coming in. The team's looking after that. Yes, we have bits and bobs to deal with. The short-term lets, on the other hand, obviously much more hands-on, right? So that's a business we're running there. It's a hospitality business. At our peak, we had 49 rental units in that. We have downsized since a little bit for a few different reasons to go into as well, but a lot to do is with the operational costs going up. And some properties, because of the rents being so high at the moment, makes actually more sense than them being.
What we'll do, we'll start unpacking each of those businesses and going a little bit more deeper into them. But just before we do that, tell us about what got you into property and what was the background.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always wanted to get into property since I can't even remember, maybe like 9 or 10, right? I just had this thing. I love buildings. I love construction. And I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad from Robert Kiyosaki when I was 10 or something like that, right? My dad actually gave me that book.
Yeah.
And then since then, I really thought that properties would be something I'd want to do. But I had that mental block in one way that I thought, look, I'll have to be in my 40s, 50s, make a lot of money elsewhere, before I can physically go into property.
Which is a perception many people have. You need a huge amount of money to get started. The Impact Network is a monthly event that we hold at our Birmingham office.
Brilliant event.
Mind-blowing.
Absolutely awesome.
Really knowledgeable. Glad I came. It's been great.
Loved every minute.
The idea being to help accelerate growth for property and business entrepreneurs. We got like-minded people together to learn and network from each other, and also some fantastic speakers. For example, we've had sessions today on scaling and growing your business, having the right teams around you, how to create a passive house in terms of investment, and also using AI to create content. This is not AI, this is a real me. I look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Yeah. So then, having that mentality, I've basically focused on doing everything else but property. So my first non-official company was when I was 11. That was in US. I'm from Lithuania originally, but we've lived in the US for 5 years when I was growing up. And we've done a lawn mowing business, like just literally gardening, lawn mowing and things like that. And, midsummer came, I had to hire 2 of my classmates to help us with the gardening business, which was kind of
entrepreneurship in the blood.
And then I'm quite fortunate that I had, my dad has always been very encouraging for us to do different things as we grew up. So every summer we do a different business. So we've literally had a grocery store, we had a car wash, we had a jewelry business. We even grew tomatoes at one point, right? We've done a lot of different things, but those have allowed us to develop skills from sales to negotiation to selling yourself to buying in services, from the marketing side, like a lot of things. And then when I came to UK in 2012, I've came to study at Aston University. I've done international business and management. And I always knew I want to do a business here as well. Like I just knew, I've never really was cut out to work for someone else. I think I'd be just a pain in the ass. Sorry for my language. But, and then, here in my first year of university, I decided, look, I need to find something that we're both passionate about, and that I could do a business out of. And then we've gone into the sports industry. So in the second year of university, I've launched a brand Sport Wolf, which was effectively a private label for, we've had supplements, we've had the clothing gear, and we ran that business for about 4 years.
When you say we, that's with
that me and my younger brother. Yeah. So I've got one brother who's a year younger, and we've gone into that business together. And a lot of the startups we've done before was with him as well, because as our dad, which is very encouraging for us to do. And I'm really grateful for that, because we learned a lot through that. And all of those businesses have been quite difficult. Like, you're trading your time for money. You've got, with our clothing business, we had a lot of challenges with just maintaining high levels of stock all the time, because we weren't doing like a drop shipping or a printing business or anything like that. We would manufacture in big quantities in Sialkot in Pakistan, in China and Shenzhen, and get those deliveries in here. And a lot has changed around 2016 when we had... I think the pivoting point for that particular business was when we realized that we can do next day delivery to anywhere in the world pretty much. So in our warehouse, if we had orders coming through early enough, we could have DHL pick them up. I think it was like 11 a.m. or something like that. And then they get delivered to us next day kind of thing, right? And a lot of that happened where the whole of the rest of the world started targeting UK. Because UK, high disposable income, there was a big trend for fitness and fat, and bodybuilding and the kind of that sector at that point. And it was just too hard to keep up with it. And, in joking aside, and again, this is something I think if I would have worked in McDonald's on a minimum wage and the amount of time I put into that business, I probably would have made more money.
But you wouldn't be alone. There's so many entrepreneurs that work for below minimum wage themselves.
Yeah, and so that was a big learning thing, and I think I wanted to move away from that retail business. But I've learned a lot. Like looking back at all these different businesses I've had over the years, I've learned something from each one of them that has allowed me to do what I do now. And then, from that business, I had a marketing company for a bit. I'm not going to go into all the details on that, but we've ended up not progressing with that particular company. And then in 2017, I've really started, because when we sold the clothing business, that was around 2016. In 2017, I was like, actually, should I start looking to property a little bit more? And then just like YouTubing, browsing stuff, And I realized, look, maybe I've got something wrong. Maybe I don't have to have all the money behind me. Can I learn and educate myself, surround myself with the right people, and then build something from there, really? And, I'm lucky to have a very supportive partner, my wife. At that time, she was my girlfriend then. And she was she went to study PhD. She's got a PhD in medicine, biomedical sciences. And at that point, that was again around 2017 start.
Yes.
So I said to her, like, why don't you focus on your PhD? Because that's super demanding. That's 100 hours a week.
Very
for 4 years, you're just, just consumed in that. Amazing, but very stressful. And just, it's just, so she focused really on that. And I said, look, let me focus on property. Like, I really want to focus on that. And I started networking out. And I didn't realize how many networking events are there for property, right? And I just went out there, started meeting people, having a coffee, just trying to understand, what can be done here. And I've very quickly realized there's like 100 ways you can make money in property.
Yes.
And I think the key thing for me was I thought, like, I really need to try and find a strategy that, because cash flow was a big thing for me at that point. I needed cash flow. I could only sustain myself for a little bit without having to go into like a full-time work, right? Or something like that, or do another business and try and do something. And so for me, the key thing was to try and find someone that's already in property, doing the same thing that I would like to do, that has proven through their track record they can do it and have achieved like the success that I'm looking to kind of get into as well. And then I've met a lot of people. I've done a lot of research online. There's a little, I'm not going to name everyone, but I met a few people, and some people were very open to share. Some people were quite reserved and just didn't really, we didn't click right. And then I've heard of a guy called Saj, right? And I was like, right, he's Birmingham based. He's doing HMOs. Well, actually, I want to do HMOs because, I've lived in HMOs when I was a student in Birmingham, and a lot of them subpar conditions, really. Yes. Like if you think about it now, like the stock that we create now compared to what what we were experiencing when I was in university is just like mind blowing, the difference. But again, I didn't have a lot of budget there. Like, so obviously, I suppose then you probably did have like very high end luxury stuff as well. Yeah. But for 350 pounds a month back then, you were only getting what you were getting.
Yes.
And then, so, I've done a bit of research about yourself, and you were hosting a networking event in Birmingham as well at Novotel Hotel on Broad Street. Yes. And then I came to the first one. I think at the very first event, I just approached you pretty much like point blank and said, like, I want to learn from you. I want to work with you. What can we do?
Yeah, and I think that was quite interesting for me, because I'm always meeting interesting people, and you get a lot of interesting conversation started. And I could see straight away, in your approach, and I thought, he's a really interesting guy, and I should find some time to explore the conversation. Yeah. And kind of that's where it started from there.
So, and I think we've had one of the team then called me. We had a quick chat. We booked in a meeting with yourself. And that's where it all really started. I think it was the first day we started working together was the 6th of July, 2017.
Wow.
Yeah. So
time flies by. Time flies by.
Yeah.
So let's dig into some of the businesses then that we're involved with. So let's start with the service accommodation, the short stay.
Yeah.
Now, as you touched on earlier, we kind of started just before kind of all the craziness started happening with COVID. But we spent a lot of time planning and prepping, and you did, all credit to you, in terms of trying to build a system. Because I was reluctant to get into this business until we had a clear plan.
Yeah.
And so we put together a solid plan in terms of how that business is going to work. Because what we didn't want it to do is to take over our lives, which quite easily could do. We wanted to build it in a way that it's be systemized and can continue to grow. And then that started working really well. But then, as you mentioned, we more recently we've kind of downsized it slightly with some of the changes that are potentially happening in the marketplace, and also during COVID, we're doing a little bit of pivoting as well. With all the stuff that was going on. So, talk us through some of what we were doing and kind of why we've changed some of the things we've changed.
I think when we've decided to go into the short-term business in general, the key objective was, can we systemize and automate it? Because we do see a lot of people running around like almost little headless chickens trying to put out fires. Because with short-term lets, you tend to have issues regularly, whether someone can't find the property, whether, something's not working in the property, or just multiple things, right? There's always a problem where something is broken, or the cleaners didn't do a good job, or anything else like that. So the key thing was,
there are a lot of people who run these businesses that operate maybe a few properties, 4 or 5 properties, and do really well. They make really good money, but they're just running around all day, as you say, like chasing a tail, trying to get these things
even
done.
then, when we've decided that, even back then, I remember with a few people that are also been doing property and not necessarily short-term lets, we were like, oh, we're going to go in this and this. And we're like, oh, you guys are crazy. It's just too much headache, right? And I look back now, they've been doing the same thing for the last couple of years as well, because it's a lucrative business, really, if you can get it automated and systemized. And I say it in a way that it's not that complicated if you have the steps to follow. And it's certainly become much easier now than it was in 2019. And I think in 2019, look, short-term lets has been around for a very long time. You've had hotels, you've had B&Bs, you've had people doing apart hotels for a long time, but not maybe on big scale and levels that kind of in the last decade or so really
and lots of small operators.
And lots of small operators, exactly. Because even with the likes of Airbnb coming to the marketplace, because Booking.com has always been for hotels. Like you never were before thinking, oh, I'm going to book an apartment through Booking.com. It's always been a hotel channel to book things, and they've pivoted with time. So I think the key thing fundamentally was to find the software and the system. For me, the critical thing has always been, as far as short-term lets went, is how can we secure the property, but also provide a secure environment for the guests, right?
Yes.
And I never really liked the idea of keys, because keys is easy to duplicate. You can cut them. Logbox is easy to open them.
Lose them as well.
Lose the keys. Just a lot of issues with keys. And even from the start, one of my key things were, can we find a way of getting all of our properties with a digital lock? And not only that digital lock would allow them guests to come in, but we could remotely change the codes. And not that we could only remotely change the codes, but could we automate that process? So the system would generate a unique code for the guests when they're arriving to our property that would be valid for the duration of their stay. And that would get deactivated and deleted as a code at the end of their checkout.
Yes, it's like when you stay at a hotel, for example, and give you a key card.
Yeah.
And that card is going to be valid during the time that you're there. And as soon as you're overstayed your stay, that key is not going to let you in anymore.
And now
similar model without the card.
Exactly. And now this seems common, but in 2019 it wasn't an option, right? So
we're trying to get things to talk to each other.
Exactly. And we've even spent a lot of time. We found a guy called Matthew. He's now our IT guy, right? But then he was quite interested in developing something as a software for that, and it was just too complicated with the channel managers. The channel managers effectively a system that's our backbone of the business that allows us to take bookings on multiple platforms, Airbnb, Booking.com, our direct website, and without duplication. And it's like the spine of the whole business, right? And those softwares were quite restrictive in the data they're able to share with third-party integrations and things. So that wasn't really an option for us for the first year or so, and a little bit more. And only as we've kind of progressed and we're looking for more and more solutions, we were able to find a way to get this done. And now it's actually widely available. But, in 2019, 2020, it just wasn't something that was there. So we've kind of had to go through the hard of finding ways and plugging in multiple different systems and tools to get that to work. Whilst now, you just literally click integrate, synced, APIs, done. Right. But that was a key thing for us. And we actually managed to achieve that. It wasn't straightforward. We managed to get it done. That allowed us to scale and provide a safe environment to your guests. You have one code for the cleaners. Like, that's just fantastic. You give one code to the cleaners, they can get access to every single property. The minute that cleaner goes maternity leave, or they decide to quit or whatever, or you let them go, deactivate that code. That's it. No going back to changing the log boxes and doing all of that, kind of craziness and manual labor, right? Because the whole thing from the start of setting up short-term lets was, can we systemize it? How well can we systemize it? And you still need the team, Now the next big thing is AI, automated guest communication. That's even taken to the next level, right? And we're still at the forefront of a lot of that, and looking at ways of both to improve the guest satisfaction, their customer journey while staying in one of our properties, but also reduce the manual labor time that's required to run this business.
So it's a smooth operation for the guest in terms of it's not clunky with lots of different things going on.
Yeah.
They've got access to information, they can find things quickly, and it doesn't require a lot of people time on our side
Yeah.
to operate and run that. And that's how we've kind of got it to work.
Yeah, exactly. And, I think in a nutshell at the moment, the only communication that the guys are doing is closing direct deals. So like closing B2B. And during COVID, we have shifted a lot to B2B, business to business. So that's one thing that we need.
So these are direct bookings.
Direct bookings.
We're not relying on Airbnb or Booking.com.
Yeah. So there's still a good flow of income from that, but the main core focus is business to business, right? But in a nutshell, if anyone books with us, whether that be through the website or through one of those platforms like Airbnb, Booking.com, etc., or even when they're a regular guest staying with us, they can find everything in what we call a boarding pass.
Yeah.
Because on their phone, they'll be able to even come to the house, click a button, the door unlocks. They don't even need to put a code in anymore. It's literally just unlock the door, right? And they have the code just as a safety measurement. If the phone would die, if they want to write it down somewhere, they can use that as well. But from getting all the other information in a very simple way of how to find the house, and we just make it like bulletproof, so like a 6-year-old could probably find the house, and like there's the photo guides and everything else. So you just want to answer all the questions beforehand, right? And just make it almost like seem, why are you giving me this much information kind of thing, just so it's an easy.
It's better to give more information or not enough.
And in that one place they have everything from Wi-Fi details to local amenities nearby, to even being able to, if someone's not from UK, they can call a taxi through that, upselling stuff, so early check-ins, late checkouts, you name it. But the main thing as well is once they go through that registration process, effectively through the boarding pass, they have to validate them in themselves. So like they give us their photo ID, take a selfie, so we could screen to make sure it's the same person. They have to sign our terms and conditions because they're coming from multiple different platforms, so we want to make sure we still have one set of standard terms and conditions that everyone gets to sign. And it's a very simple process. And we also take security deposits, so that gets all done automatically. We're not chasing anyone for anything, and unless they complete all those steps, they don't get the check-in information, right? And some platforms we have less requirements than others, like Booking.com is everything's required. Airbnb, like ID is not required because already pre-verified through Airbnb, and there's other security elements, and we can even alter the security deposit requirements from people that are coming directly through the website or anything. So ultimately, it's all systemized. And now, having that process, it's very easy to duplicate that, to add more stock into it, to take stuff away. And as we have downsized due to some of the other elements, and we can touch on that in a minute, it's easy, and it's easier for us to teach others to do the same thing, because we've done it the hard way from what should have been like the best way of doing it in 2019 that wasn't possible. Now the system have caught up with time, and it's now been designed that someone even with 1 or 2 houses can have pretty much the same thing we've built over the years at very affordable cost.
And the growth of that was, once we'd kind of figured out some of those systems, our interest was, how do we take on small blocks, 6, 8, 10, 12 units in one building, and preferably the entire building, so not huge tower blocks, but small clusters of a flat. And that worked well, because I guess we're like operating small hotels in a way, self-operated.
So beautiful thing with them is economies of scale. We'd have linen storage on site. You can have guests that you can reallocate from one apartment to another apartment. You can play with the counter, so the team can literally look at the next month and say, okay, we've got 6 apartments in this building, and we have various reservations scattered throughout. We can actually consolidate them into full occupancies for this apartment now, because because they're all similar, right? So they're same size. Okay, you might have a variation, 2 beds, 1 bed studios, but then you can consolidate.
They're very similar.
So economies of scale, that works really well. You can have multiple groups staying in the same. So we've had a lot of corporate clients that would take the whole block, right? They want to have their engineers stay with us in one location, secure parking. Security is a big thing for us. Where we have CCTV, automated locks, super fast Wi-Fi, really important, right?
And this is where contractors, or whether it's vans or equipment, or whether it's valuable laptops in the property and stuff, they just want to make sure they're safe.
And sometimes we might think, okay, well, why would we go down the corporate route when we can actually charge more for the leisure guests? And that's true, right? We can charge more per night for someone who's coming for 2 nights, and someone's coming for a week or 2 weeks or maybe a couple of months. But the bottom line is actually much more profitable with the corporate guests, purely because you can have quarterly cleans, I mean, every fortnight, so every 2 weeks or every week. It's full occupancy generally, so it's Monday to Friday, Monday to Sunday. Sometimes you might have the weekends, but generally we prefer the Monday to Sunday arrangements. You don't have to chase any invoices. You just raise the invoice and then the month you get paid. It's very straightforward.
The income's pretty much guaranteed that way. And you touched on quite a few things that I want to just go back on. Like, for example, the occupancy level makes a huge difference. That tiny little percentage when you start getting 80, 85, 90% or above, those little percentages are all going down to the bottom line in terms of profit because your baseline costs are covered. Yeah. So like with the corporate clients where they are staying longer, they're staying 7 days, they are much more valuable for us clients rather than somebody who's, come to see their kid at university, for example, and they're here for 4 days and then they're gone. And we need to find somebody else for the rest of that time. And the niching down, I think, has been something that's really helped our businesses where we really drill down to specific niches and say, right, this is the sector and the area that we want to work on. And we want to be the best we can in that space. And with the system, the way we set it up, we could scale it up or we could scale it down quite easily as well. And when we were looking at scaling it up, I remember some of the conversations we had with some developers where they're building apartment blocks. We said, we'll take the whole building, try and negotiate terms and that with them. I remember one that we lost out on.
Yeah. I know exactly which one we're talking about.
Because we spent an enormous amount of time with this developer talking to him about how to kit it out and what we want and stuff. And in the end, we never got it because he was just so greedy about the small little amounts. And I don't know what happened with it in the end, but I'm sure he would have had a better relationship with us. We would have done a much better job. And I don't know what the outcome of that is because we were quite particular about how we want to run it, how we want to operate it, which was good for us, good for the owner of the building, and would have been good for the guests as well as a long-term business. So let's talk about, we touched on, we scaled back a little bit on that business. What's changing in the SA space that meant that we've kind of saying, okay, actually we need to reflect a little bit. Do we want to continue growing this business for now?
I think a few things came into consideration. A is where we're spending our time to start with. So, for example, now we've been able to buy more stuff because the market changes, right? And we are actually able to negotiate stuff on the flip stage, most of the developments. So it's also kind of looking at our general preference of growth, right? Then there is regulations coming out in the short-term let sector that a lot of people aren't talking about. I think there's going to be definitely challenges around lenders and mortgages for some of the people who are running short-term lets on rent-to-rent basis or leases, and particularly when it's related to apartments.
Yes.
Houses won't be as complicated, perhaps. So regulation is changing, but that wasn't really the regulation we're not worried about. We're probably even more compliant than we should be as far as fire regulations go. The way the properties are set up, not overcrowding it. We're always very sensible of how many people. We're not, in a 4-bedroom house, we're not putting 15 people in, right?
Yeah, which you do see,
right? So from the compliance side of things, that's never been a deciding factor for us. It's more a case of when the regulation does come through from in a form of licensing for short-term lets and potentially the planning new class for that. If anything, they'll reduce the amount of competition out there, which will make our properties more profitable. But I think the key thing has also been looking at, the rents have gone up a lot in the last couple of years. Just your normal box standard rents for tenancies, whether that be a room in an HMO, whether that be a flat, a studio, or a house, right?
Yes.
So the rents have gone up quite significantly. With that also have gone up our operating costs. So we're paying quite a lot for our cleaners. We're paying quite a lot for the linen, the utilities. As a fact, obviously, as an operator, we have to cover. Then the software costs, yet they've gone up a little bit, but not in line with all the other costs that have gone up drastically. So we had an increase in the operating costs. Once I was doing an exercise and looking at our portfolio of short-term lets and looking at actually what we make at the end of the month on average throughout a year per specific unit, whether it be a studio, 1-bed, 2-bed flat, or a house. And when I've looked at what actually we could get on open market as a fully furnished, beautiful home for someone to live in, that there is a difference. Don't get me wrong. You can make more money with short-term lets. Well, it's actually, if we step down and make a little bit less money, but get more time back to focus on the acquisition side of things in the business, and we were restructuring the team a little bit at the same time. So it made sense. So we really were selective with the properties that were the ones that were performing really well. Obviously, they're still working really well, and they're still on SA, and they're going to be on SA for a long time. But the ones that were kind of, maybe a bit further away from the cities, or just weren't performing.
They were more
as
secondary rather than a primary in the sense of their performance. And I think the other thing with that is the operational costs went up, as you mentioned, that the costs have been rising.
Salaries, everything.
Everything has started costing more. And the rents have gone up significantly. Now, some of these buildings we own, some are leased, and the ones that are leased, some of them are leased years ago and they're on lower rates. And when we look at actually, if we just let this out, as you said, fully furnished, the profit we make may be a little bit less than what we would make if we ran it as SA, but we'd still make a really good profit on it and reduce the input and time that we need to put into that, meaning we can focus on things as SA. And so it's not as a case of we're scaling back on the SA business. We are taking one step back with a view to taking two forward as the time is right.
And I think that the bottom line, like our profit across the various businesses is just growing. It's not like that we're downsizing SA to like we're getting houses where we're selling houses. So just repurposing the way we're letting them for the moment. And look, once the market recovers, and I think with the short-term let's look, it's still really good, but I still find that people aren't willing in most cases to pay the rates that should be really the rates now. If someone was staying on say £100 a night 2 years ago, they're still looking for stuff for £100 a night, not £120 a night, right? And I think generally in Birmingham, at least what we've seen over the years now, over the last few years, it's become more necessity travel as opposed to, let's just go to Birmingham for the weekend, right? It's more a case of parents are visiting kids at universities, doctor appointments. The B2B sector, still very busy. That hasn't really changed. If anything, that's going up in terms of business. But you're kind of, people coming to Birmingham, leisure, shopping, nights out, that's obviously, quieting down a little bit. And, give it another year or two or whatever it is that, once the kind of market starts recovering, perhaps, then we might reconsider and say, okay, well, actually, let's put these units back on to short-term lets as and when the tenancies end up.
And we're always very flexible like that. We always think about, we need to be mindful the market's constantly changing, constantly evolving. And that's something, I go on about a lot, that it changes all the time, the property market. And we need to be ready to adapt very slightly to things that are happening so we can stay nimble, agile enough to be able to benefit from changes as they're happening. So the systems is a key part of our business, and that's an underlying thing in everything we do. And the program that we put together for the service accommodation business was really, here's how we built this whole thing out. Here's literally all the tools, the systems, the products. This is how we connect things. This is how we build the boarding pass process into how it all works. And that's a 2-month program as well that people can join us on that. And we'll put a link on the screen if people want to learn more about that particular program, and they can get details on when the next intake is. But I think something that's really important about education is, for us, doing property is a core part of our business. That's what we do. And we make time to be able to help and support other people through education. But I guess the thing that frustrates us both is when people just learn and don't do anything with that information. So just learning for the sake of it is pointless. Like, you could be watching YouTube videos like this for hours and hours and hours. And if you don't do anything, it's just entertainment. It's not benefiting you in any way, where this knowledge is so useful and so powerful as long as you implement it. So if someone's watching and listening to this right now and they are somebody that is actually going to implement the learning, then reach out to us and talk to us.
100%. I think fundamentally the key thing is taking action, right? At the end of the day, it's for every business that I've had over the years, I'd be a bit obsessed about, right? And I think the property hasn't been always the same. And I was in a fortunate position with when my partner at that time, my girlfriend, she started her PhD. I said, like, well, I'm going to focus on property. And that was like 100 hours a week, every week for probably 4 years, right? But you got to make sacrifice, cut out the Netflix, it's
that obsessive nature what brings huge success. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be obsessive, but you have to be committed at least.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's one thing is that with most people we see, if they're not taking action, even if it's like, don't have to be perfect. Just got to come and start somewhere, right, at the end of the day. So I think,
imperfect action, as long as it's progress, we're moving forward, implementing.
Definitely.
So we talked about the service accommodation short stay business. Let's talk about the HMO business. Tell us about our typical tenant profile first of all. Who's it that we try to service in the HMOs?
And as you know, and as maybe some of the listeners will know, like there's different categories you can target, right? So you've got the high end, which I'll discuss where we are really kind of focusing on. You've got your working professionals that are, with either class them as white collar, blue collar, white collar being like more office based, maybe grad students, things like that. Well, blue collar is maybe more manual workers, on construction sites, factories, it doesn't really matter. And then you're kind of going down to the kind of lower end of professionals, but like, the kind of very basic end of the market. And we've also then got various other, you've got the student HMOs, you've got the people that are on some sort of benefit, whether social housing, support accommodation, support living, emergency housing. A lot of that still falls under an HMO. So our core focus has always been from day one, really, the working professionals. We don't really typically let students, with exceptions with master's or PhD, because we still class them as mature individuals, but wouldn't necessarily rent to an undergraduate, who's 19 years old kind of thing. So we're already pre-qualifying our tenants being mature and, in reasonable work positions. So I'd say a big part of our tenants are graduate students in grad schemes, well paid, with the big employers in Birmingham, who are on good salaries. They're probably on more than average, but perhaps in most of the times, because, we are commanding very high rent. So we have to have the affordability met as well there. But we then what we find, I suppose, with our tenants, they generally look after the houses more.
Yes.
Look, I probably can't say that our team still hasn't got to babysit them time to time, because there's still, maybe a little niggly bit of issues in the house with, the tenants.
Yeah, sometimes it could be personalities.
Exactly. But I'd say that's far less of an issue than it would be with the other tiers of tenants you potentially would be housing. And that allows us to effectively find houses in really good locations, that we can spend a good amount of money on them to create like an amazing product. Like I'd be very happy living in some of our rooms. Like, if I didn't have a wife and kids, like they'd be like just super nice places, right? And I think that's the fundamental thing. We want to create places where we'd be happy living ourselves, right? If we'd have to. And a lot of our houses that we built, if in-house for us, they're between £900 and £1,100. I think the top one's 11.
No, I think we've got one at 14, close to
1,400 now. Exactly. So like we keep ourselves, like I didn't even know, like it's surprising.
We have some crazy high rents. And I think that comes from, as you mentioned, the location is key, first of all. It needs to be in the right place. And if it's done really nicely, and if there is a good demand for people that want to live in a property like that, then we can be selective about who we put in there in the first place. If we've got 4 or 5 people want the same room, we can pick the best tenant effectively, and which means they run smoothly, they don't cause too many problems, these type of properties. So there's a whole aspect of the right property, right location, right layout, creating it for the right profile of tenant to attract that tenant, to get the premium rents, to get those massive valuations that we achieve on some of the properties.
Yeah. And I think fundamentally it boils down to, you got to understand your tenant, who you're going to be renting to. You've got to be realistic with the rents. And we do see people time to time overspend in areas where they just can't achieve those rents because they didn't do enough research in the area, and they're like, well, actually they were hoping £800 a room, but the market's only able to pay $650 there because it's, so I think
and so their numbers are all off.
Exactly.
That means the cash flows are wrong. That means it doesn't achieve the end valuations. And that's probably the biggest mistake I see, we see a lot of people making, is they'll buy in a location that's probably not going to work.
Or they buy, no, it's not only that, they might buy in a location that could work, but they target the wrong tenant.
Yes.
As well. If they went down the kind of blue collar workers and didn't go the ensuite route, but they had them at £400 a month, there'll probably plenty of tenants for that. But would that stack for the purchase, still the renovation costs, the stamp duties, the legal, the professional fees? And some people are happy with that. They'll leave more money in the property. It'll still be a solid investment, right? But you'll have a lot of money stuck in that. Whilst we prefer to really, maximize our end values, we still leave money. Sometimes we don't, sometimes we do, but that allows us to just grow that portfolio, right?
Now, as you mentioned, we're not adding more in terms of design functionality. We're not changing that very much because we're at a point where we've probably got the best we can create.
Yeah.
Always little bits of tweaks that we would do on each property, and some properties are laid out differently, so they just warrant different types of a setup. But we just kind of repeat that process by finding the right property in the right location that meet our needs. Because ultimately, we want to create at least 100 grand of equity in every property. Meaning, once we've bought it, we've done a massive renovation, there needs to be an uplift at least £100,000 minimum for it to be worthwhile, that process. And that then also allows us to get the higher valuations that we are looking for. That high valuation meaning that if we're getting money back out of it, we're still getting a really good cash flow. 1,500, 1,800 is cash flow is not unusual for each house. And we are getting to the point
per month,
is getting to the point where there are some properties producing £5,000-6,000 cash flow income a month. They're quite high rents to just think maybe 5 years earlier, we would never have imagined that we'd have rents this high. And some of it's just the market's gone that way, and we've constantly pushed the boundaries as well in terms of what we think is possible. And something we were talking about just earlier this week that we've never done before was toying with the idea of maybe we should do this for other people, because we've always said no in the past. And the reason we've said no is because it's a huge amount of work, finding the right properties, making sure that we can design it in the way that we need to, obviously in that purchase, dealing with the funding side of it, the ongoing renovation, finishing it, tenanting it, the refinancing, ongoing management, all the whole end-to-end process. There's a lot of work involved, and we've never done that for somebody before as a fee-based thing, but we've been contemplating maybe. And now, with what we'll talk about in a moment, some of the other things that we've added into the business, there's maybe the capacity to do one, possibly two other clients that we can do this for. But there's a criteria that we're only going to do this in and around Birmingham. It's kind of going to be on our patch, the areas that we know really well. And the person coming in with us, they need to have at least 250 grand cash minimum to be able to do this, because by the time we've done the purchase, renovation stuff, we need the liquidity to be able to do it. So it's not going to be for everyone. And that's something we kind of emailed our database just earlier this week. We had a few people respond that say they'd be interested in having that conversation with us. And also with the similar to the service accommodation business, the HMO business, we've built into a whole process of here's all the steps and how we do it. And we spent quite a lot of time, you spent an enormous amount of time last year breaking it all down into say, okay, here's how we do this step by step.
Well, for us, I think the main thing was in order to grow further, we had to find a way of systemizing that, because we were doing things well and every project was great and we'd improve it as well as we progress with every project. But we didn't quite have a full framework and we weren't able to outsource. And the key thing for me when I was looking at it was like, hey, can we systemize everything so we could outsource more of the stuff that we're doing day to day as well? And then we were looking at, actually, this is a full blueprint of the whole thing, right? From finding the right properties and negotiating on them, to understanding how to say the numbers, to doing the full designs and the layouts and the functionality side of things, to even appointing the contractors and overseeing the whole thing. And at the end of that, being able to refinance and find the right tenants and perhaps appoint a management agent or whatever, right? But that really allowed us to put everything on a kind of big table, and we ended up with almost like 33 big steps that from A to Z, what you have to do to create a successful HMO project, from finding it to securing it to the delivery stages and refinancing and letting it out. And having gone through that, which has taken us a lot of time to really put all of that together, it kind of, I suppose, got us thinking as well, like, hey, this is actually now, we've got a model that we can replicate. We can actually scale on that. We can do more processes at the same time because we have a very clear path of how it needs to be done. And look, there's always still going to be challenges. There's always going to be still minor tweaks and changes. But with the framework, we're now able to put every project through that we know the outcome of it. Like we have a more clear picture of like how that needs to go. And I think that's kind of sparked the conversations as well. Like we can actually now do more than what we have been doing, and we could do it for someone else as well. we could also teach someone to do the same thing, because we actually just know we've spent all of that time putting it in there. So it's very easy, understandable content that we had to get our team to understand, so they could actually pick up more responsibilities in doing certain of these sections of the tasks that need to be done. And I think it's
putting this into the framework as we did last year, and then we kind of taught it for the first time last year.
Yeah,
HMO Profits Blueprint program last year, we ran it for the first time, and we had a number of students go through that to kind of learn the model and the processes and go out to implement that. And this year, just later this year, now we'll be rolling out almost like a version 2. It's kind of the original version with some improvements and tweaks, but we're only going to work with a very small group of people doing that. So if anyone watching or listening to this right now, they're interested in learning from us in terms of how to do this, so they can do it for themselves via the HMO Profits Blueprint program, we'll put some information on the screen so people can find some more information on those. Or if they want to potentially be considered as a client for us to do this as a turnkey solution for them, setting up the HMOs, the whole thing start to finish. And we've also sold some HMOs as well, because we'll talk about the flipping business. In fact, let's jump onto the development side of the business and what we call the big property group and what we do under that. So we're flipping properties, we're buying properties to renovate and keep, which might be the HMOs or some of the SA stuff that we do, and some developments as well. And when we found it a little bit more of a challenge to find the right flips to buy something to renovate and sell, we were buying some properties as HMOs, renovating and selling them. And the reason people would buy those, because they're already operational, producing an income. And as we said, because there's like 100 grand equity in them, for us, they're like flips. So when we're buying, developing, selling something, typically we want about 100,000 profit out of it for the amount of work that goes into it, because there's a lot of detail, a lot of planning that goes into producing a fantastic product. So flipping some HMOs is something we've done in the past, and regular house flips as well. And so, for example, we've got block of apartments that we're doing at the moment.
I haven't got no more hair to lose for that one yet.
Well, I was gonna say something we haven't talked about is everything we shared so far sounds fantastic, but as you alluded to earlier on, it isn't smooth. It isn't like this is a smooth journey. There are challenges and frustrations every day that we are dealing with, and which is led also to actually some of this stuff we outsource. Maybe more of it we need to keep in-house. So, for example, we have our own maintenance team, we have our own management team as well. And, we have private funders we work with. And then the construction element was a bit that was missing. It's a case of maybe we should bring that in-house. What's some of the challenges that we've had with, I guess, mostly contractors on projects, on the many, many projects that we've done?
Again, look, there's always challenges, right? And it's not straightforward, but I think you grow a slightly thicker skin with it as time goes, and you just deal with them more efficiently. Every project has its own problems or challenges or issues. With HMOs, there's hardly something that does come up that would be a surprise to us these days, from structural stuff to planning side of things to, we know that pretty much in and out. And we had to go through a fair share of headaches and challenges to come to the point where we can efficiently deal with those problems now. So, as far as flips and developments go, so we typically have 3-4 projects on the go at any point of time, realistically, right? So a few would be outsourced to an external team that would be doing that. So there's always a challenge of finding the right teams. Fortunately, over the years, we've been lucky to be working with a few teams that have been consistently working with us and, are doing a great job all the time. But I don't even know how many builders we've sacked over the years.
Quite a few.
Quite a few. And a few of them went bankrupt on us as well over different projects. So, I think key challenges with contractors, which again, we had to learn the hard way. And this is the key thing I keep on telling to everyone that, is involved in the Inner Circle program or any of the students or in any of the programs that we have, is you have to plan the projects in advance. As long as you pick up the keys, don't start the work straight away. I mean, it's great if you've got a team lined up already and you've done all the work beforehand, which is the way you should do it. And then you crack on, start the rip out, start the work.
All the prep has been done.
Everything's been done beforehand. But if you were kind of, on a beach, relaxing, waiting for the property to complete the sale, right? And you picked up the keys and like, oh, let's find the builder now, let's do this. And then you're kind of rushing just to get going because you've got the key now, right? And that's where you make all the mistakes, because you're not find the right contractor for the project, because you don't even know what you're doing at that point yourself fully, right? You might decide to tweak the changes, or you haven't really finalized the internal layouts. You don't know what, maybe even like the final finishes and schedule of works and things like that. So I think the challenges has always arisen if you come to a project without you, firstly doing the preparation. So you're then maybe not perhaps getting the best contractor lined up for that specific project, whether it's a new build, an HMO, or whatever it might be. And if the contractor hasn't got a clear set of guidelines and expectations that you want them to deliver, it's hard for them to price things up. It's hard for them to give you accurate timelines. And that's where the challenges come through later on, where you're starting to make decisions on the go. You're maybe deciding, oh, I'm going to put a plan from right here, right? Well, the plan was meant to be on the other side of the building originally, but you've changed your mind because you want to add another bedroom or whatever it might be, right? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the contractor, there's going to be extra lengths of copper pipes. We've already pre-planned this, and this is changing. And that's where you're starting incurring more costs, delays in the works, perhaps falling out with the contractor because now they're becoming a bit like, well, you're squeezing me. You're not, you're not. So I think the key thing is just planning it in advance. Whatever the project is, if you can spend a week specifically for that project, look at the layout. I think we start with the layout. Like, are we adding volume, loft conversions, extensions? Okay, if we are, how are we going to do that? Do we need party wall agreements with the neighbors? If we do, okay, who do we point for that?
Because that could take several weeks.
That could take several weeks, several months, right? Yeah. If you're dealing with HMOs, are we doing any services upgrades? Are we upgrading the water supply? Are we upgrading the electricity supply? Who and when is going to be instructing those services? Because the service upgrades takes a long time. You might finish the whole renovation. You might not have the services upgrade at that point yet.
Right. Yes.
So if you plan those things in advance, that helps the whole project run more smoothly. If you know the layout, then you can start working on, okay, I know my layout is specifically on HMOs, if we're discussing them. You lay out the rooms, right? So we're going to have X amount of rooms. This is their kind of shell. This is their main walls. Can we put en-suites in them and still achieve what we want? Do we still have to tweak that layout a little bit? Move some of those walls, move the doorways. Very common thing for us to do. Once you've done that, can you fit all the furniture in it? Can I have the bed where I want it? Can I have the workstations? Are we going to have any tea stations or more small kitchenettes? Once you have the layout finalized, then you can start thinking, okay, let's look at the electrical plans. Let's look at the plumbing and the hot and cold runs. Where are the radiators going to go? You've got that out of the way.
Yeah.
And then you look at, okay, what is going to be my design? Like, are we going for what colors, the carpets, the kitchens, the bathrooms, the tiles, and all of that? And it might sound like there's a lot to think about, and there is a fair bit to do. And that's ideally what I'm saying. You have to do that before you start the works. And not even start the works is before you appoint a contractor.
Yes. Because the contractor needs to know what they're doing.
Exactly.
I guess for some contractors, a disorganized client is probably an ideal client because they'll just be pricing up, oh, that's extra, we're going to add this, and they'll be quite happily just adding more and more work to it. And the budget will just spiral out of control because there's no management of what was required exactly.
Yeah.
As you said, just moving where somebody's going to put a plant room. There's a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of nuggets you drop because you do speak quickly. You share an amazing amount of knowledge. So just picking up on a couple of things like the water supply going into a HMO. You know, we talk about en-suites and 6, 7, 8 en-suites in a house, but often the water pressure is an afterthought. Very few people think about, is there going to be enough water coming into the building to actually service that many showers? And there's so many conversations we have with people that have been stuck on projects that have come to us and says, I'm doing this and I'm having this issue, and say, well, a lot of it comes down to you just didn't plan at the beginning. You didn't organize, you weren't prepared, and you're just you're doing it as you're going along. And that's why you're discovering so many problems. And so the more of that we take in control in-house, it means our projects are just going to run more smoothly. And, you know, we are fairly obsessive in controlling about what we want. We want great outcomes, and we can achieve that. But the more control we have over the whole process of everything that we do. Now with, you know, we talked about the service accommodation business. We talked about the HMO business. We'll talk about the development side of the business. Let's touch on some of the education stuff we've done. We've kind of mentioned some of those things earlier. So we have a program to help people with service accommodation, if that's something you want to do. Literally the full blueprint and the automations is the key thing in that business, is what allows you to build and scale. So if somebody's already operating a service accommodation business and wants to grow, but they're really struggling to get their time back, how to grow that, or how to start and build, but build in a way that you can scale it.
Yeah.
The HMO blueprint that we have, which is really the framework, the model that we use to create these start to finish. And these are all 2-month programs that we have. And then we have some mentorship as well. So there's a number of ways that we can help people. And we'll put up various links on the screen for people to be able to get in touch with us. And before I share why this is the last episode, if somebody wants to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Social media, generally speaking. Aidas _ my last name, Aidas Grubliauskas. Instagram's probably the easiest way to get in touch quickly. Yeah. I am due to release my website at some point. I've been too busy with the beautiful girls I've got and all the business we have and the team. But that's going to come out soon at some point. And happy to have a chat. And as far as support goes to people, we're happy to jump on a quick call as well. If someone's struggling with some of their projects, whether that be HMOs, short-term lets, or some of the development stuff, we're always here to help, really. If you're in Birmingham, come to one of the events, let's have a chat. And the
Impact Network event, which is the third Saturday of the month. And those that have maybe follow what we do for a little while will have seen that we stopped running our monthly property meet, and that the networking event that we met at, which probably about 16 years those networking events have ran, and they've kind of stopped now. And the reason we stopped them, and people thought we were retiring, I thought we're definitely not retiring. The reason we stopped them because we wanted to evolve what we are doing and talking about, and the people that we can serve, and the topics and the discussions. So rather than it being just property, we want to expand it out a little bit more around business, so we can start talking about building businesses, the sales side, the marketing side, the operations, finance, social media, AI. There's so many other things that are related to building a business, and it's bringing experts in various fields to share their knowledge and experience. Hence, we then created the Impact Network to really be able to deliver that, and the training and programs that we do sit underneath that organization. And what we decided with the Big Property Podcast, we're at the 100th episode. So I'm so pleased we did this one together, the 100th one we did together. And we feel that now's the time that actually this is something to draw a line under. We bring this to a close. And the reason we bring it to a close is so we can make space for something new. So although this is the final episode of the Big Property Podcast, we are going to create something new to replace it, where we can start talking about more broader topics as well. So watch this space. So really, it's a case of keep your eyes peeled. Very soon, something new, something big, and something different, impactful is coming. So see you all very soon.